Mana ki awaiki, ka tū ake mai te kōuni, mai te kōona, e toki mina e toki mai ngā rea kai rā. Hira ko ai tū o tangata ki te pū o te rākau, kaui ho, kaui ake, kaui tua te kaho, tangaro, ko au, ko wata ka kā, ki tua ho aiki. Ka te a te rawa, ka wai, ka tāne, ka harurutu, whana, hara mai te toki, hui e, tai ki e.
Tākina te kawa o Rongowhakaata, papatū ngā pakiaka ko whaiwhai papawhāriki te whenua, ruku i te wānanga, ngā hua o te pō, te puketaputanga o te whakaaro, karanga pākura ki tua o te ārai, ko te pū o te keko he tohu aroha, tukutuku karere ki ngā paukokonga o ngai tāwhiri ki runga i te rangi ko Ngāti Maru ki raro. Ka tiu ka huka i te tai awatea, ka ruku i te huka o te tai moana, unuhia te wai o te tai ao, manawaru te ihinga ko te rangi Māori e te aka matua mo taha rākau e tūtangata whenua nei ki runga i te aroha, ko Rongowhakaata kai runga, kai raro, kai roto, kai waho, kai te iwi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. RIT is a corporate entity of a group of people that are actual mana whenua. So there's some specific committees. There's the Audit and Finance Committee, there's the Appointments and Remuneration Committee, there's the Te Hauki Tūranga Governance Group, there's our board. So all of those people have been helping to look after the interests of the organisation, to help look after the interests of the people. RIT staff across that time has been numerous as well. When I think about our rangatiratanga mahi, our work to do with our whenua, e mihi ana kia Kristen Maynard, Jodie Wiley, Samuel Lewis. Anō hoki ngā mihi kia Murray Palmer and all of his work to do with the resource management. I want to also acknowledge from the Taiao group, Soraya Pohatu, who's working really hard as the Taiao team lead, and her co-leaders Tina Suta and Dar Walker. Inside of that team, Kevin here, Matthew Foster, Damien Whanga, Chrissy Fatuira, Michelle Mātete, Mere Maraki, we have Siobhan Brown, we have Tara Whanga. Inside our Rongowhakātatanga space, we've had Francis here, Chrissy Moitara, Tāpunga Nepe, who came in to sort of project lead the return of the Rongowhakaata exhibition. And as well, we also had two manukaria there, Chevrolet Babington and Ahirana Wata Amai. We must also pay a big mihi to our pautikanga that was at Te Papa Taharako Stewart and Auntie April Nepiasua. There's the assets and property manager, Laird Kennedy, Auntie Lil Hawkins at the post office and supporting the Te Hauki Tūranga Governance Group, Rose Pierce. We also have Kokavanis Wata Amai, and they're all led by Petra Hape, who's our corporate services manager. I also want to acknowledge the move from Deloitte, who've been looking after our finances in the past towards Hudson and Taylor, and we have now got Jimmy Hill, who's helping us look after our monies. And last but not least is our comms team, led by Leroy Crawford and Monica Freeman. I'm always pretty aspirational about Rongowhakaata. I really believe in Rongowhakaata. I believe not just in the people, but also in the wealth of the mātauranga that sits around us. To me, vitality isn't a static thing. To me, it's a practice. I think the future for me is every person who has whakapapa tū or connects into, they have access to this vitality because we're practicing it across our spaces. That's what the aspiration is.
The start of this financial year was a significant change, particularly in staffing and in structure and setup. Coming into the organisation in June with the exit of 3 key staff members, my mahi became quickly around trying to understand the organisation and the current form that it was in. And I soon quickly realised that lots of changes needed to be made. So for me, that started with a big clean up.
For the new managers who came on board, it's a pretty challenging time, having to understand and see what's missing and what gaps are in the service, or rewriting policies.
I was employed for 40 hours a week, working 90 for the first 6 months. So I think that for me comes with the fact that, one, I'm passionate about what I do, 2, the work ethic is really strong, but 3, I'm Rongowhakaata. So for me, a lot of it was internal, my mahi, and that was around like human resources, making sure we were legally compliant. I focused a lot of time on closing out those tasks.
A big part of my role is relationships, both sort of out there in the community, consultants, leaseholders, trying to reframe those leases and those relationships with those leaseholders from a perspective of vitality.
One of my work areas is Maru Whakatipua, which is an initiative that was driven initially by the Ministry of Education. Rukupō is the core delivery program that we have in our Rautaki Reo stream. Last year we had 4 levels of delivery in Rukupō. A big part of our work stream in the Rongowhakaata tangata was closing up ko Rongowhakaata and then the safe return of our taonga.
When COVID first came, a lot of us here at home were really scared, didn't know what to do, didn't know, where to go. And the Rongowhakaata Iwi Trust, we rang a lot of the kaumātuas around here to see if they were okay.
Managing the social media platforms, manage emails to communicate back with whānau that had emailed in, and trying to also build our register.
Other external agencies wanting things of you, you've got resource consent, you've got other activities that are happening.
All the time, like we get 6 or 7, 8 or 9, 10 of these resource consents. They're just all the time coming, and you just got to sort out what battles you want to fight.
Someone wanting to put a pipeline underneath the mouth of the Te River, the Waipawa River, or water, 3 waters, like reforms, all of these things are constant inside of our space.
So I've been basically leading the Pourangatira work program, and that mahi's involved really 4 things in particular that we've been prioritising and focusing on. The first of those is the relativities. There's been a recent decision around Mangatu actually at the end of last year that we became aware of. That means that Mahaki will be receiving back the forest worth about 200 million, and as part of our settlement that means that it actually really blows what we achieved during the settlement process and Ngai Tāmanuhiri out of the water. We've been working with Ngai Tāmanuhiri over the last year over putting ourselves into the best position we could to really argue that relativity be maintained amongst our settlements. Mahaki is supporting the fact that we maintain our relativity as well. So that's been a great thing in terms of bringing us together in that particular way. Probably one of the biggest overlaps that happens with the rangatiratanga mahi is with the resource management mahi, particularly in the Pipiwhakao area. We've got a whole lot of issues that happen where we are not engaged or consulted on a number of things that happen within that area in which we have mana whenua.
The proposal to build a new building on Titirangi, we engaged a lawyer from Ngāpuhi, so we worked with her on producing a submission saying that all the people that have a relationship with Titirangi should have a say in what happens here.
Part of the overlap too is with the coastal claim that we've got when it comes to us looking at the particular applications around the coastal areas and our rights and interests there. Puhikaiti is going to be a big overlap area as well. We've been engaging with Crown officials on how we can actually start progressing our coastal claim and looking at the areas in which maybe it may be a bit more easier to progress at first. So what we've been looking at really is around Paukahu and Kopitutia, because it makes a lot of sense. That's strongly in Ngāti Maru ownership. So looking at maybe that as being the first of the rank in terms of looking at how we can achieve some of our rights and interests in the coast on through that process. One of the things that everybody has been aware of is the dump that's been on Paukahu that's actually emitting some of the highest carbon emissions in Tairāwhiti, and so that's been an area of concern.
There's been lots of work that come from external of our rongo space, and so navigating through those pieces of work has been quite big.
Toitū Tairāwhiti housing is a response to the current housing needs that sit within our communities at the moment.
A lot of my time has been in the housing space, trying to understand where and sort of promote where Rongowhakaata values sit within the Toitū Tairāwhiti Housing Limited framework.
The systems aren't ours, we haven't developed them. Currently we are responding, so it's a reactive piece of work, the housing, which makes it challenging for us, which then in turn becomes a challenge for our whānau.
The funding was made available by central government as a sort of a post-COVID response. Basically funding made available for application by marae and by trust to make aesthetic upgrades to the marae. The project has been slow, but it's nice to finally see these projects starting to near completion.
Because of the nature of COVID at the time, we had to reorganise what a closing looked like.
I thought it was a nice way of closing under the circumstances that we had. After closing it, we knew we had to return things, so there was lots of considerations. But we got out of there all right, and the whānau are happy with their tohunga back.
When we were doing the journey home, our leader tapunga made sure that the marae were involved, so that it was never just the committee doing all of the thinking. The marae were able to have the input. That was very rich.
We made a commitment to think, well, whatever we were going to do, we were going to try and do it together with the people. We wanted to give mana to the taonga, to the whānau who contributed. We wanted to be able to represent. We wanted to be able to do all of these sort of wonderful thoughts and ideas, and COVID really messed with our ability to do that.
Ka tere Raua, ka tere Pipiwhakao. Raua was the ngahere in whakaki, and Pipiwhakao was the ngahere here Manituke. And when the tāwhara berry was in fruit in Raua, that was a sign for us here in Manituke that we could harvest in Pipiwhakao. Today and this morning's events, I think, are a sign of the tāwhara berry for us coming back to fruit, and our mātauranga being something that's very much in our reach.
I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And it was a bit sad, but happy, because the taonga needed to come home.
Our people came together. Rongowhakaata was able to come together, one of those momentous occasions. And I think that's the beauty of taonga, is that they can bring people together.
Our relevant sites at the current moment is Pakuwhai Stream, Te Kooti, Te Whirowhiro, Te Arai. We do a little bit of work at the Raua Stream during inanga season. We have Rakaikaka, Whatatuna, Pipi. We have 2 locations on the Waikanae Stream, one down at the railway station and one currently by Te Kooti Atuatai. The majority of my team came and they had no tile background, that this was a new space for them. For some of our kaimahi, you know, they had been disconnected from the iwi for a long time. And so there's that re-engagement back within that iwi space and reconnecting to the whakapapa and to the whenua.
It's given me a purpose. especially because I was in agriculture, and so coming into our whenua and being around the rako, it's so refreshing. We've also had the opportunity to do a diploma with Te Wānanga Raukawa in environmental management, which has been a real eye-opener for me. The opportunities that will come with it will be amazing.
Sometimes I think we underestimate how rich we are with the people that we have, especially the next generation. What I love about them is how they're willing to share whatever talents they have, to give generously, wholeheartedly.
Kia ora, ko Shivi Babington tōku ingoa, he uri ahau no Rongowhakaata. I was an intern for the Manuka Area internship with Te Papa and RIT. So me and another rangatahi of Rongowhakaata, we were a part of an internship which we helped return the tohunga from Te Papa back to Rongowhakaata.
The Manuka Area internship was like the best mahi experience I had ever done. I'm so grateful for the opportunity that the iwi let us do that, or provided a platform for rangatahi to do their internship.
I was very honoured and privileged to be a recipient of the internship with the Office of the Prime Minister's Chief Science Advisor, and my project essentially was focusing on tohunga collected by Captain Cook in 1769. I was very honoured to have been supported by the Rongowhakaata Iwi Trust and also our marae that have provided support for this project, and to tell our stories, many of which haven't necessarily been told before in their entirety or their fullness.
When you actually look at the patterns, as Uncle Jody has said, they're very comparable to those from the Manutuke Church. You see, these are arts that we continue to practice. Mai te wā ko taimai o kuki, huri no ki te pakanga o nātapa, huri no ki te wā ko mate a Rukupō, a ka ora tonu wa tōna teina ko pera tāwhiti.
We originally started with a seminar with whānau of Rongowhakaata, and we brought a team of researchers up to Gisborne in high priority areas around artificial intelligence, data sovereignty, virtual reality, and also the need to actually take charge of our technical infrastructures and ways to do that, because those are the challenges that pose Māori, both current and in the future. Our ability to produce our own data, store our own data and protect our own data is a growing problem.
We've had the election in this year, so big acknowledgements to those trustees who came off in December 2021. That was Adam Maynard, Marsha Wiley, Johnny Moitara, Tiaturangi, Nepia Clamp, and acknowledgements to the trustees who have come in and taken up the helm. That's Connie Maynard, Roxanne Smith, Fleur Painga, Tama Waipara, and then Adrian Mihaka and Phil, who was able to come back through from the previous board, myself and Moira, who's been the chair for our iwi for a number of years now, has helped keep our waka afloat and keep it strong, and help us now look at what our onamata is in front of us to then start moving towards the anamata.
From my perspective, one of the good things is that the transition was a conversation as opposed to, right, we have an election for the chair and who's for and who's against. About what would you like to do, what does that look like, and how do we move it from A to B?
The thing I really felt straight away was that everybody around the table has good intent, and that everyone was committed to trying to find a way to improve things for our people. That's at the base of everything. Even when the conversations are hard, I know that we're all coming from a place of wanting to do the best by our people.
I could see that there was a lot of demand on Rongowhakaata and a lot of demand on the person that sits in the position as chair. I could see that we were ready to move forward in a very Rongowhakaata way. I could see that we've got a lot of kaupapa that's in front of us, lots of it's long-standing that our tipuna have left for us to carry forward, and A lot of it was also being driven by external interests, not necessarily a Rongowhakaata interests. So I could see that what we needed to do was get some alignment with our Poutuarongo so we could start taking steps forward for the year ahead.
So the rahui for Taina and I was in response to the vast amount of work that we had on the work program. It was quite hard to decipher what was business as usual and what was extra, what was reaction and what was not necessary but nice to have. It provided us with the ability to take time to be able to really prioritise as an organisation where we wanted to head and what mahi was important.
I think people were also sort of moaning a little bit about the comms or the lack of comms around that. When you don't have capacity, you don't have the ability to communicate in the way in which everybody wants you to.
So I started at the Trust in April of 2022. When I started, I could see that staff were stretched, and because of that and other reasons, our communications and community engagements were lacking. During that time we were in Rahui, so we were able to reflect on the way that we communicated, and in that reflection we kind of identified our kawa as a kind of inspiration for the way in which we communicated. And so if you've been to a Rongowhakaata Iwi recently, for example, it's not RIT on one side and Iwi on the other side, we're all together, and that kind of shift demonstrates the way in which we want to communicate, because it's not a us and them conversation when it comes to the iwi, it's just an us conversation.
The rahui was significant because it's part of our kawa, it's part of our tikanga. At times we have to stop and slow down. And that's what it did, it gave us space to think about what we need to do going forward. Rahui is going to come up again in our space, but it's not going to be a thing that we need to see as negative. Actually, it's about organising ourselves to project ourselves forward and to become more productive as an iwi trust.
It helped us figure out what's important, and out of that Te Hoki Tūranga, based on the mahi that the Te Hoki Tūranga governance group's done for the past couple of years, helped us say that this is going to be a priority. The rahui also helped us see that we need to be able to start growing leadership in all layers, and rangatahi are a big focus. The tūranga waiwai pākura kaupapa is about ensuring what we're thinking about is where Rongowhakaata traditional spaces are and how we connect back into them, and commercial programming. And that's a really big part about how do we have this ability to make these choices and do these things in our way. Well, we'll need to generate a form of income, so we've got the resources to do that. The rahui helped us map out 4 key strategic priorities in addition to stabilising the organisation in a way that we can start to grow and move forward.
We've been talking a lot around what vitality might look like for us as an iwi, and our annual plan is kind of strategic with our rangatahi generating enough revenue so we start to decide what we want to do. Our cultural space around Te Hoki Tūranga and those things that hold us together. Here in Tūranga, why we're standing here on this street, doesn't feel like Rongowhakaata to me. There's a layer that's on the top that takes away our identity, and then there's a layer underneath. But we've got to understand that layer. We've got to understand how to bring it alive. This is the conversation around mana whenua. So what does mana whenua look like for us as an iwi? It means that we as people, uri of Rongowhakaata, not corporate identities, but just our identities as iwi, as hapu, and as whānau. We need to start practicing what that looks like. And that's going to take some work, and it's going to take practice, and it's going to take us coming together. The organisation, as RIT, is an umbrella organisation that wants to fill itself up with your power and with your direction. Nā reira e te iwi, e mihi ana kia koutou, tēnā koutou, and we'll see you at the hui atou.